Coming up in 1 minute on the Jackin Around podcast.
Owner of Willie's Joint, best name of a restaurant ever.
And Beaner was like, man, there's this guy I'm working with at Riverfront Cafe. You've got to meet him. His name's Pat Green. I had no clue what I was doing, and all I could do was watch what you were doing and watch what Robert Earle were doing, which were the two that Pat and I both looked up to. You know what I mean?
It took off pretty quick.
It was a rocket ship.
So how long did you manage Pat?
I was his agent for roughly 12 or 15 years, managed for probably half of that. I had built up my agency. At one point, we had about 32 artists that we represented. I mean, Enzo and I co-managed Ragweed for several years together. The route he's taken with Parker, I think, is huge. I think what Jeb Hurt's doing with Co is, there's just a lot more communication and knowledge, people that you can talk to and look at and say, hey, man, what'd y'all do here? And they'll share the information. It's not, and if you've got the
Well,
right
none of
artists,
this is rocket science.
No, it's not like that.
How many shows do you do now?
Pre-COVID, I was doing about 15 a year. Now this year I'll probably do 6 or 8 shows.
This is the Jackin Around podcast, hosted by two-time Academy of Country Music Award winner and master storyteller, Jack Ingram. In these open dialogue podcasts, Jack digs into the personal stories of a wide variety of special guests. And now, here's Jack.
The Jackin Around podcast is brought to you by Lone Star Dry Goods, a collection of handcrafted quality goods with a truly unique Americana vibe. Visit the world headquarters in the heart of downtown Abilene, Texas, and Willow Park, Texas, in Fort Worth. Visit LoneStarDryGoods.com for more information. Welcome to the Jackin Around podcast, available on your favorite audio platforms and in video on YouTube. For links and info, visit JackinAroundPodcast.com. It's burned.
One girl was pitching, and you were catching, and she was throwing heaters.
Kat Osterman. She comes to shows.
Really?
Yeah.
She's a hoss.
Remember Ricky Williams was that bat? What's that guy doing? He took a fucking swing at it. Oh. I remember being up there going, as soon as she calls me out to the mound and goes, hey, I'm bringing the heat. Because it was 3-2. And she goes, I'm bringing the heat. I go, okay. And I don't think she thought I was going to catch. I think she was trying to tell me to get the fuck out of the way.
Just get out of the way.
But I was like, all right, here we go.
Hell no.
It was funny, man. That ball goes, it's coming, but it's so big that it goes.
Like a knuckleball.
Yeah, man, it was crazy. Hey, are these on?
Yes.
Hey, did you fix them?
Did I fix what?
These things? No, they're fine.
This tension.
What are you doing?
Doesn't know. It doesn't matter.
Oh my God.
Fridays.
Jesus Christ. Are you fucking kidding me?
You imagine him on stage, like the lead singer on stage.
And that was Greg Henry on the Jackin Around podcast. Yeah. All right, Greg Henry. Good to see you, bud.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Owner of Willie's Joint.
Yes, sir.
Best name of a restaurant ever. Bar. Y'all serve food there?
We do.
Pretty good food, right?
Real good. Burgers. Best burger in town.
There's another Willie's.
There's a Willie's. There's a couple of Willie's, like New Braunfels area. It's called Willie's Garage or something.
There's one over off of 71.
Yep.
Going towards Marble Falls. How long y'all had a Willie's Joint?
We just celebrated our 8th year anniversary on July 4th.
Was that you?
No.
Hold on. Didn't I used to play some of those?
Oh, yeah.
The anniversaries?
You and Gaddis, I think, did 2 or 2 or 3 of them.
Me and Gaddis?
Yep. And it's always rained. So this year it rained. And we had shiny ribs set up, and it rained, so we had to cancel.
You're kidding?
No.
They didn't go inside?
No. They just showed up, and they were like, we're not even going to charge you for canceling. We'll just reschedule, and we'll come back. So they're being really cool about it and trying to get them back later in August, I think.
Is that going to continue?
No. Sir.
God damn. So, man, I met you back. Let's start from the beginning. You were 17 in Hillsboro, Texas.
China Spring, Texas.
But I was in Hillsboro.
You were in Hillsboro, yeah.
For Delane
Yep.
Crow's
Yep.
graduation party. Somebody just sent me a picture of that the other day.
Oh, wow. In the backyard.
It's crazy. And I know we've talked about this story 1,000 times, but never officially, for the podcast. But like, I do remember getting a letter from you. I can talk about how badly it was. The grammar was left much to be desired. But
I never really liked school, so.
But I remember it being just so heartfelt, and basically, I'm still in awe today. Sorry, Matt Pivito, everybody. I still remember that it said what you wanted to do with your life, and it's exactly what you did. I mean, how did you you were just a dumb kid.
I was. I was thinking about that on the way here. I was like, man, my mom and dad, it's not like they were in a band. They didn't grow up in the music business. I didn't know. I think I went to maybe one concert when I was growing up in '87. I'll never forget it. It was Van Halen with David Lee Roth, because my brother wanted to go at Reunion Arena. So my parents wouldn't let him go by himself, and we went. So that's like the only I didn't grow up in a background of music. And then ended up starting out with Gary P. Nunn. My parents, their family friends were listening to Gary P. Started listening to him, and then Robert Earle, and then you. And I was like, man, those are the three. I was like, I didn't even know anything about Wylie at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I really never went to Austin, lived in Waco, Texas, kind of just pigeonholed there. Went to Dallas for baseball games or football games here and there every once in a while, but never south. So didn't see a lot of the music that was down in Austin. I wish I would have saw like Stevie Ray and all that, but
right.
So did that, and the way I just got into it, I was like, man, this is what I want to, I want to follow some music. So Jeff Griffin and I started following you around, and Robert Earle around, and Gary P. Nunn, and just fell in love with it. And Beener was like, man, you like this sound. There's this guy I'm working with at Riverfront Cafe. You've got to meet him. His name's Pat Green. And they were bartending. And so he gives me a Dancehall Dreamer CD. I take a listen. I was like, man, this is exactly what I like. I love this guy. And at the time, of course, Dancehall Dreamer sounds just like Robert Earle. That was one of Pat's influences, along with you.
Yeah.
And so we started hanging out. So come up to the bar for free drinks. So we went up there for free drinks, started hanging out. Left there after his bartending gig. Went over to a bar in Waco, Texas called Chapter 11.
So hold on. So Pat had a bartending gig?
Yep. He graduated from Tech, was back home working for his dad part-time, and then bartending at Riverfront Cafe.
That's hilarious.
Yep. And just playing acoustic in Lubbock every chance he could get.
I love the thought of him being behind the bar.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Serving them up. So
2 fingers for you, 3 fingers for me.
Maybe another 3 for me.
Yeah, man. So was he gigging in Waco too?
Not really. He literally was going back to Tech or to Lubbock every chance he could get to play to his 20 friends, little following friends that he had at any beer garden or corner restaurant that he could go play, because they knew who he was, and he could get 20, 30 people out and go play acoustic and make $150.
20 or 30 people.
Yeah. Maybe spend $300 to get there, but make $150 on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we ended up going to Chapter 11, and we're sitting there, and Jeff Griffin and Pat Green and myself were sitting there talking, and I'm in college. I don't know anything.
Where were you going to college?
MCC Community College. I was going to go there for 2 or 3 years, and then go to Baylor for 2 or 3 years, however long it took me.
Right.
I was probably going to be on the 6-7 year plan.
Right.
I didn't like school, but so we did that, and we're sitting there, and Pat was like, I really want to get my name out. I want to be a musician for the rest of my life. That's what I want to do for a living. And I was like, okay. And I had a couple of side jobs. I've always hustled from high school on to date. and had $1,000 Wells Fargo credit card in my pocket that I'd never charged anything on, just had it. They sent it to me, and I was in college and signed off on it and kept it. And we're in the bar, and this guy walks by and he's wearing a Jack Ingram beat up Ford shirt. And Pat was like that guy just, at the time, this dates me, but you know, that shirt was probably $12 or $15. Now they're $25.
Yeah.
But he was like, for $12, that guy bought that shirt from Jack, supported Jack, and he's a walking billboard for Jack. That's what I need. And I was like, I got a Wells Fargo credit card. Let's go print some shirts, man. So we went and printed as many shirts as we could for $1,000. And every time every weekend, he would work during the week. Every weekend he'd go to Tech and he'd go play acoustic to his friends and come back. So I was like, all right, man, you know, I couldn't go with him. Didn't even think about going with him because I knew nothing about the music business. So bundled him up, 20 shirts, medium, small, large. He would head to Lubbock. He would come back and I'd be like, man, how'd it go? He's like, oh, dude, it was great. Everybody, you know, had a great time. I'm out of shirts. It was awesome, blah, blah, blah. I was like, cool, let's settle up. Like, I want to get this credit card paid off. Let's get the money settled up. He's like, oh, man, all my friends just wanted one. And I couldn't charge them. They wanted one and I gave it to them. I was like, okay, cool. So no big deal, man. We'll put that down as a comp and we'll get him on the next round. All right. So he goes next week, goes up, same story over and over like 3 or 4 times. And finally I was pissed. I was like, I have 0 shirts. I have $1,000 debt. Bills coming in. I'm going on the road with you, and I will be the asshole that says you cannot have these shirts for free. Like, we don't own these shirts. You have to pay for them. So that's how I got in the music business. Started jumping in the Suburban with him, toting a little rolling case from Walmart with me, and had stickers on it like a road case because I wanted it to look like a road case, but it wasn't.
Right.
And that's how I started. And then we were in Stephenville at City Limits.
So hold on, did you go to Jeff Griffin, aka Beaner? Were you in high school with him?
Mm-hmm.
He grew up in China Springs, or where is that?
China Springs is 15 miles northwest of Waco.
So it's Hillsboro.
It's close. It's probably 15, 20 minutes from Hillsboro.
All right.
We're super close. We didn't play them in sports or anything, but they were close. But yeah, Jeff Griffin and I have been friends since 6th grade.
Wow.
I always say 3rd grade, just be like Robert Earle, but yeah, the truth is it's 6th grade.
Who is his 3rd grade guy?
The
fiddle player, right?
Yeah.
Forget his name right now.
Best friends since 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Duckworth, yes.
Brian Duckworth, yeah.
So, but yeah, we've been friends since 6th.
Wow, something useful.
Yeah.
What do you keep? When I said you should be a character in the podcast, I didn't mean like full fucking dead on. I meant like every now and again, like a voice from the side.
Oh, Lord.
So you're hanging out with Beaner. Did he have dreams to be in this business forever too?
Nope. Neither one of us grew up having a dream to be in the music business. We literally lucked into it by him working at Riverfront with Pat. Me jumping on as just a toting around merch guy, starting out that way, and it's crazy.
But so literally, he barely had gigs when you started working with him.
Barely, yeah. Every weekend.
And was
Lubbock.
Griffin's was Beaner going with y'all?
Nope. Beaner wasn't in the picture for several years. It was like me on the road. Then we went to City Limits. Stephenville, Texas. What's the guy's owner's name? VW Stevens.
Charge you for fucking beers.
Yeah. I mean, a water's $3. But yeah, so we did that gig, and I'm selling merch, stage left. And
well, Stephenville, hold on. City Limits is 1,000 people.
Yeah. And it was weird because like you weren't at the end of the building facing
It was
long
the
ways. You were facing sideways.
Long building.
Yes.
Stage right here.
Yep. So not a bad seat in the place, to be honest. I mean, it's kind of
Not a good one either.
Yeah, no, true.
That was a strange gig.
It was. But
I remember him. We probably talked about it. Coming up after the, kind of like in the Blues Brothers, like, you owe us $347. Like, yeah. What the fuck? Well, y'all drank this much beer. I'm like, we get into this for free beer.
Yes.
That's
exactly.
the fucking point.
Yeah.
We don't pay for beer.
Yeah. It's our pay plus booze.
So hold on, but he only had 20 people in Lubbock, but he shows up to see. Like, did it start taking off?
This was a while later. You know, it was probably at least a year later after I started. I would go to Lubbock with him every weekend at that point because that was the only gig that he had. So we would play once or maybe twice that weekend. I can't remember the beer garden. It was right by Stubbs, but there was a beer garden.
I know what you're
at
talking
Stubbs. I don't remember the name of it.
That's where I played the first time I had tickets.
Yeah. So that's where we would go, and we would, if we
It
ended up,
was just called the beer garden. It was by the
warehouse.
What'd they call that?
Yep.
That place where we played eventually, across the street.
It was the place you wanted to go play. I don't remember the name of it.
11th Street
Something
Warehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he eventually would get like a trio or a full band. We'd still have to go to, I mean, for a long time, we went to Lubbock back and forth. That's it. And then Michael
That's a
Terabay,
7-hour drive from.
Oh, yeah. And it was even worse because Michael Terabay was in the band. And Michael
You could have stopped there.
would not, he would not drive down to Waco from Dallas. So he made us go from Waco to Dallas to Lubbock. And he was married to Natalie Maines. And every time we'd go up there and grab him, we would just keep going. But on the way back, we're exhausted. So we would sleep on the floor of Michael and Natalie's apartment, which I'm sure she hated because it was like a 1-bedroom apartment. And here's dumbass Pat and I, just sleeping on the floor in the way. But we did that for a good year, solid year, just back and forth to Lubbock. It was crazy.
And was he selling T-shirts?
Oh, yeah. We started selling. That's when I created the mailing list, back when you used to have to mail everything with, mailing you a letter or mailing a tour card out or whatever you want to call it.
That's exactly. You know what's funny, man, is I didn't realize just how strict y'all were sticking to the playbook that I'd had done.
Oh, yeah. No,
The postcard, and I was copying Jackal Pierce.
We all copied everybody because I had no clue what I was doing, and all I could do was watch what you were doing and watch what Robert Earle were doing, which were the two that Pat and I both looked up to. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, well, they're playing at this place. I'm going to call this place and see if I can get them in there. I'm going to call this place. And then we just kind of started making that circle, but making it bigger and bigger and bigger, and trying to open for you and trying to open for Robert and several, Jacko Pierce. I mean, those are other guys that we loved.
But it took off pretty quick.
It was a rocket ship. It was a blur. I mean, there's people to date still come up to me and be like, you remember this? And I'm like, no. And they start telling me, I'm like, okay, I remember that. I mean, it was a blur. It was a quick blur.
I was always jealous because you guys seem to be such good friends.
Yeah.
And, I didn't really have, like, I tried to get my buddy to come out on the road with me early on. And it was he wasn't dumb enough.
Well, thanks.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he had gone to A&M. He already had a good paying job. He wasn't flying by the seat of his pants, and so he couldn't do it. But
I know what you're talking about. He's super smart. He was too smart to go on the road for sure.
yeah, he had to go get serious.
Yeah, I just wanted to, run around, have some drinks, and have a good time.
And you're very successful in that.
Accomplished that for sure.
So hold on. So how did you steer that ship from literally putting gas in the tank to blowing up? So that's in 95, 6, 7, 97?
97 is when early 97 is when I officially think I started with Pat, as far as I can remember. Looking back at
Were you just getting
check stubs.
commission?
Oh, yeah. Oh, he was very fair. He has always been very fair and kind of followed what other, he had dealt with other agents and stuff and kind of was like, hey, man, if you do this, then it'll be this percentage or that percentage on merch or this percentage on booking. It was all kind of different. But in Stephenville, that's where I was selling merch, and it was like I'm standing there and selling merch. And this is kind of early on. And at the end of the gig, we opened for the Great Divide. And we were back there taking pictures of the Great Divide. And then I ran back out and started selling merch. Oh, they're killing it. And I'm selling merch, and this frat guy walks up and says, hey, man, I want to get this merch, blah, blah, blah. And how much is it to book Pat? And I was like, book Pat? And he's like, yeah, book him. And I was like, let me ask Pat real quick. Hang on 2 seconds. I didn't know. I thought he wanted a book, or I didn't know what he wanted. I had no clue what book Pat meant. So I go back and I'm like, no, I'm like, hey, Pat, this guy.
He wants to book you.
You have a book? You wrote a book or something? No, but I was like, hey, he wants to book you. He's like, oh, man, just tell him $500 and I'll give you 10 or 20% commission. It was something good. It's like 20%. He's like, tell him $500 and 20%. I'm like, shit, $100. Hell yeah. I waddled my ass back out there. And thanks to my dad being an entrepreneur, I went out and I said, man, Pat said he could do it. It'd be about $1,500. He goes, oh shit, I'll sign the contract right now. I was like, perfect. So I don't know how we worked it out.
Pat told you 5. So you had like everybody has a problem with numbers. Like normally, if you want to say 5, it comes out 50.
Yeah.
But you had the opposite problem.
Oh yeah.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
So you immediately knew like, oh, if Pat will do it for 500 when I know he'll do it for free.
Yep.
I'll go out there and fucking take advantage of this frat boy.
Yep. $1,500 in my head. That's $300. I'm in. I'm a college kid, broke, on the road selling merch, and then from there it just was like crazy. It was like boom. I mean, I was going through the Texas Governor's book at the time. They had a list of all the festivals in the back from A to Z. I sent a promo pack, which was a picture, a Dancehall Dreamer CD, a bio, and a folder. I didn't care if it was Tejano, blues, rap, country, festival. I didn't care what festival it was. Every one of them. I sent out 500 of these things, or 1,000, however many it was.
And how many did y'all get back?
One. One, and it was a big one. The guy calls from Bedford Blues Fest.
Yeah.
And thank God I sent it to the Blues Festival, because if I would have just stuck to country, I wouldn't have sent it. But anyways, guy calls and says, hey, I've got the Dixie Chicks headlining this deal, and we've heard about Pat through your packet you sent, and Marty and the Dixie Chicks mentioned Pat, and Marty and I used to talk probably every other week because they would be on the road, and she's like, hey, I gave this owner a CD for Pat. She loved Pat and was just trying to help us out as much as possible. Sweet. It was really cool. So the guy calls and he's like, so is Pat available on this date, this date, and this date? And at this point I'd moved kind of from merchandising, still doing that, but also booking. And taking calls from the website. We built a website when websites first came out.
Did you have a dedicated phone line or just your phone at the house?
I think it was the phone at the house, because my mom, years later after I moved out, was still getting calls from the posters that Lone Star Beer gave us or whatever with the phone number on it. So the guy goes, well, we'd like for Pat to open up, and what are you thinking? I said, I don't know. What do you have in budget? He said, man, we have like 6 in budget. And I was like, okay. So we talked for about 20 minutes. At the very end, I was like, can I just recap on this? It's this date. This is the spot. And how much was the money? He's like, $6,000. And I was like, oh, shit. I thought he meant 600. I was like, wow. I said, okay, well, this looks pretty good. I'll probably need to talk it over with Pat and just see if it's going to work or not. Like, just trying to play as cool as I can. I'm over there just fist pumping while I'm talking. So I called Pat and I'm like, rich. Pat, yeah, I'm like, we're rich. But I was like, Pat, I already know the answer, but holy moly, we just got this offer. He's like, confirm. Why'd you even tell him you're calling back? What if he doesn't answer? And I was like, man, he'll answer. So that was the first big one. And I was like, okay, this is something I can get fired up about every morning. So the merch, the booking, and then eventually I was on the road with them, and then it got so busy with the merch and the booking. That's when Jeff Griffin fell in play and went on the road with them. Was handling the merch, was handling
was he in college too?
Tour management. No, he was just working in Waco. Actually, no, he was at MCC. Yes. He went to MCC a little bit shorter stint than I did. I think I went for like 2 years. He went for like a year and a half.
Right.
Neither one of us liked school. We didn't like school. We were in high school. It wasn't our thing.
Right.
It's how my kids are too. I have 2 daughters. One of them could care less about school, and the other one is all about it. But so Jeff Griffin, Beaner, came on board, and he started taking over the road stuff with Pat, merchandise. I was at home, had a home office at my parents' house, doing the bookings, which led to management. So it was like booking and management, so on and so forth. And it was just.
Was it all frat stuff, or was it?
It started out as frat stuff, and then a few openers here and there for like you guys, you and Robert mainly was my we were just watching and going, okay, here's what they're doing. They're mailing these out, and I'm getting this card, and we're, whatever we could do, mailing lists and everything. Even looking at merch and, okay, how are they doing it? And not copying it, but going, okay, they got 3 shirts, we need 3 shirts. They got 2 hats, we need,
Right.
And then it just, I don't know.
I wonder if I could get some commission off of that.
Yeah.
Retroactive.
Checks in the mail.
Pat's always been very generous.
Yes, very.
I mean, when he took off, when y'all took off, that was the first of many times that that the guy who opened for me, I would end up opening for. And every time I did, it's like he felt bad. He'd come up and we'd sell something out. He'd sell it out, and he'd come up after the show and give me a big old wad of cash.
Yeah.
He was always that way.
He did that a lot with a lot of people. I mean, not just him. I mean, he very generous and thankful for people around him. And, then he moved on to different avenues as far as music in Nashville. And people are like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I'll sit here and defend the guy till I die. I mean, it's like, no, man, like this is a good guy. He's not,
He's a really good guy.
He was directed in at that point with another manager and maybe a certain direction he shouldn't have went, but we were young and
you didn't. That's the thing, man. You didn't know the direction you were going in the first place. So to change direction is no big deal.
Yeah.
Because we didn't. It's that Willie thing. Like I didn't come here and I ain't leaving.
Yep.
Like man, what direction would you go? I don't know. The wind blew us this way this time. It worked out pretty well. It's blowing this way this time.
Yeah.
We'll just keep going. So how long did you manage Pat?
I was his agent for roughly 12 or 15 years, managed for probably half of that.
The first half?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Jimmy
Perkins took that over.
Jimmy Jailbird.
And so he was manager. I stayed the agent for years after that. And then it got to a point where I was told that someone like William Morris could do a better job than what I could do, only not because I'm a bad person, but because of the connections. And of course I'm pissed and I'm like, this is bullshit. I'm getting screwed and whatever. I was there from day one, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't about the money because Pat was like, here, I'll take it, whatever. But it was about being involved. And I was like, give me an example of how William Morris can do a better job than me. And they're like, okay, well, do you have a Houston rodeo offer for Pat? And I said, yeah. They're like, how much is it? And I was like, $60,000, for example, whatever. They're like, oh, and that's a big offer for me. I mean, as an agent, I'd never really gone above 25, 30 grand.
Right.
And they're like, well, here's what the Houston Rodeo does. They take their agency with all their clients, and the Houston Rodeo says, here's X million dollars, chop it up how you want amongst your artists with what's fair. And they had a $125,000 offer for Pat at the Houston Rodeo, although he wasn't even a client. They knew that they could give him that money. And at that point, I was like, throw the talent. I'm done. I'm cool. As long as Pat is going to be taken care of more than the way I'm taking care of him, that's all I care about because he's my boy. We're friends. We're business partners.
But that was your job at the time, and you didn't have any other clients.
Nope.
So that it wasn't just...
No, at that time, I did have clients. At that time, I had built up my agency. At first, it was just Pat. And then as the years went by, probably 6 years into it, that's when I picked up out of Waco, like I was booking Roger Crager. I mean, pretty much a lot of them came through Austin Universal Entertainment, which was AUE. At one point, we had about 32 artists that we represented, 3 or 4 agents in there, a couple administrative people as well. So, but at that time, so yeah, I wasn't dead in the water. And then Pat was like, here's a huge bonus and you're going to stay on board as our in-house promoter. So I did about 6 shows a year where Glenn Smith and I would partner up and I'd be like Pat's in-house promoter. And
was that for the Starplex and the Houston one?
Not Houston, but we did some stuff in like Beaumont, the Ford Amphitheater, those sheds. But it wasn't a lot, and it lasted about a year because Glenn and Jimmy were good friends. So that's where that Glenn got put in the mix, and I loved it because every day I still learn about this business. And I learned a lot from Glenn Smith. You know,
Glenn's a good dude.
He's a reputable guy, and it taught me a lot of things from a promoter standpoint, which is out of everything I've done, which is almost everything in this business. I've owned a bus. I've done it all. I love the shows. I love producing shows and being a promoter.
Why?
I think because I'm a hell of a multitasker, and it takes someone with a lot of organization and patience to be able to put everything A to Z together, whether it's a porta potty or a generator or the stage or the artist or the green room or, you know, whatever it may be, tickets, all of that.
How many shows do you do now?
Pre-COVID, I was doing about 15 a year. Now this year I'll probably do 6 or 8 shows.
With different artists or?
Nobody exclusive, just anything that works out.
That's what I mean though. Like,
yeah.
Are they most of them multi-act bills?
Yeah.
And do you kind of stick around the same wheelhouse of talent?
I do, because that's what I know. I mean, people have said, "Hey, can you book rock?" And I'm like, I wouldn't know. I feel like I kind of know what the market value is in certain cities for different artists, and I feel like whether I go do a show on my own in College Station or Waco, I know what I should be paying them, or if I get hired by somebody to go and produce it for them, I know what I should be buying the talent for.
Were y'all working with dude from Corpus?
Mark Shaberg?
Yeah, we all doing a bunch of stuff with Shaberg at the time when you first started with Pat.
So Shaberg, I forgot about that part. Shaberg owned Popular Talent in Austin. I went to work with him 50% of the time at Popular Talent and work on the frat parties with Gentry Spaulding. I don't know if you remember him. And then I also was booking Pat at the same time. So I went into his office and kind of double dipped on trying to do Pat's career and survive with Popular Talent at the same time.
Wow.
But if you look at the old dancehall record, Mark Shaberg's Popular Talent number is on Dancehall Dreamer, which I had to change once I started doing it. But there's still some records out there somewhere with his info on it.
He was the one that taught me about all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because I remember he had me play a burgers and beer party for the Sigma Chi's at UT.
Mm-hmm. He and John Dixon were super tied into all of that. I mean,
he taught me about supply and demand because he gave me $75 the first time. Did I tell you this before?
No.
He gave me $75. They set me up on the other side of the pool where so Mike's right here. Here's the pool. And drunk frat boys would come and stumble past in between me and the pool. And the whole party's going on over here. And they'd come and knock into the mic and chip my
tooth.
I still got a couple chips in my front tooth. And I was like, fuck this.
Yeah.
Because they were having a ball, but nobody gave a shit about the music. I was like, so, and after I was done, they go, that was fucking awesome. That was the best. So I go, all right, cool. And Shaberg called the next week and goes, hey man, they really loved it. They want to have you again. I go, okay, cool. 150.
Yeah. Bump that up twice.
300.
Yeah.
6. I just kept doubling it until it got to be a substantial amount. And then I was like, all right, 2,400 is enough.
Yeah. Which they would have paid that first time if we would have just known.
That's what who knew?
Yeah.
Maybe they were paying Shaberg that.
Possibly.
But it was funny because I just remember thinking, well, if I'm going to be your pimp, I'm going to get paid for it. Because I remember that after the second or third one, they go, man, every time you play, we've never had this many hot chicks at our house. I was like, oh, good.
I'm your chick magnet.
Good to know.
Got it.
Good to know. We'll take care of that. That's funny.
That's awesome.
So you were with Popular Talent for a while?
Yep.
Working day to day with Shaberg and Dixon?
Shaberg and Gentry. Dixon wasn't in that office. He had his own, so they were kind of separate. But Mark had an office right down on campus on the drive.
What was their little magazine they used to?
By Dirty's Hamburgers. He was right by Dirty's.
I remember that.
Yeah. And he had a place called Mangoes across the street or something.
Mangoes across the street. It used to be, it was the original Antones.
Yep.
Remember we'd play in that stage, and there was a huge pillar, like just right in the
yeah.
middle of the stage. I was like, what is this,
Yep.
man?
I remember just sitting there watching you or whoever would be playing there, and it was a restaurant too. And I mean, a big old fat rat would run across the rafter, across the top of the stage. I'm just like, oh Lord, this place. But yeah, those are good times.
Pivotal, were you working with those same artists at the same time?
I had Corey, Greg had Pat, and we had relatively competing agencies for a while. We'd switch artists, flip artists.
What Matt's not telling you is that I had an agency for years before Matt did. And for 12 months, Matt would call me every day and say, hey, man, you know, like, so what are these contracts and how do you do this and that? And we would talk, and we were buds, and we're still buds. But and then within about a year after that, those conversations, like, oh, he's starting his own agency.
Oh, so you know how it feels.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember seeing Pat going, this looks awfully like
Yeah,
similar to my
exactly.
stuff.
Yeah, just so yeah, I was just like, oh, okay. But Matt had some great artists on his agency for sure, and we ran through a lot of them. I mean, I know we at one point turned down Randy to pick him up, turned down Los Lonely Boys, which the demo is like Willie's Camp sent us this demo, like Pootie or somebody. It's like, hey, you know, you gotta listen. These guys are awesome. But the demo of Los Lonely Boys was not the Los Lonely Boys that became famous. It was this very blues, different demo. But it was kind of like you just had to, I guess, hear it and see it.
Yeah.
Just like the Chicks. Like the Chicks weren't what became famous with the Chicks. It was super country. They were dressed up in Western dresses and early in the day. I don't know if you ever saw that or heard that.
Dudes, thank heavens for Dale Evans.
Yeah.
So my first gig in this business, I was at school and didn't know what to do. And so Crystal Clear, Jacko Pierce made records at their studio.
Yep.
And they did the production of their CDs. And so I didn't even have a gig. I was just like, I want to be in the music business. I didn't really even know I wanted to be an artist necessarily. And I got an internship at Crystal Clear Recording Studio. Did, you know, cleaning up ashtrays, picking up drinks, you know, seeing cool rock stars walk in and out. And the Dixie Chicks made that record, and they had 10,000 of them. They had the CDs in one pile, the plastic cases in another pile,
Oh, yeah.
and the artwork. And I would sit there and put them all together in a closet.
Yep. 10
I
cents
hated
an
that
hour.
fucking record for free. I think that's
Damn.
it was a lot, but just like everybody else, every day I went in there, I would see how bands act in the studio. I would see some bands that look like they have their shit together, some bands that don't, some bands that are great, some bands that have their shit together but they suck, but because they have their shit together, they were in there.
Right.
You know, you just kind of learn how that business kind of works.
Yep.
Oh.
And if we all knew, or if we knew what we know now, if we would have known that then, like
Gotten into it.
I would have be a multimillionaire, because I would have done things, you know more about the career and what you're doing. And I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying
Done differently.
I mean, from a perspective of the artists that you pick up and being able to get them in front of, like, knowing the ropes of, okay, we've got to get them in and open. We've got to do things. I mean, social media has changed a ton too. We didn't have social media back then, but I just think, I'm not saying it's easy. I just think it's easier. I mean, you look at like Howie with Cody and you know, like Parker and Co. And I mean, not saying they haven't earned it, because they certainly have.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of groundwork that's been done by, you know, Willie's generation to, you know, Robert and you guys, to Pat, to Randy, Pat and Randy, and then you've got Co. And I don't know, just looking at it, I'm like, man, I wish I had the knowledge that I have now if I would have had it back then.
Right.
Because I think it
Would you have thought bigger?
I think I would have thought bigger, and there would have been probably better, you know, different decisions made with certain artists. You know, like, no, we're just I mean, what in my opinion, what Howie is doing with Cody Johnson is what should have been done with Pat. Just stick.
What's he doing?
To it. He's doing it how he wants to do it, but he's growing every day. And Pat was growing, but then some decisions were made, and they made the change, and it just kind of pissed some of the fans off that were there. You know, that cult following. I mean, that's how a lot of you guys have made it and are making it, is that cult following. That was created, and it was like, oh, I'm bigger than that. Well, no, you just and Cody. I feel like Cody's done a good job on.
Well, do you think Cody has a better identity, self? You know, he knows who he is, maybe a little more than.
I just think there's more knowledge. I think what has happened in the past with certain artists and how they track down the road, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna do it like this. And I mean, even to the point where these guys are going doing these festivals. I mean, we were playing for $15 at a festival. They're paying for $40-$50, but they're going in and they're taking part of the concessions and part of the ticket fees and part of the, you know, everything's on the table for some of those big guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, we didn't know that. All we went just happy to have a gig.
Well, how could you have known it?
No,
that's the thing. Yeah, so that's the truth.
Yeah,
because I remember when I would talk to Pat and to a lesser extent Corey, but it's like everything got a little like Pat would talk to me in terms of that he thought I was selling out all these places and huge, mm-hmm. and I'm always like, man, that bar that you saw me in only held 240 people, dude.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, it's like the balloon just got bigger and bigger, and so when Cody and Parker and those guys came, we made it from a little kiddie pool outside in the front yard to a full-on swimming pool, and now it's a lot bigger.
Lake. I mean, Enzo and I co-managed Ragweed for several years together, and what he's done with Parker is the route he's taken with Parker. I think is huge. I think what Jeb Hurt's doing with Co is. I mean, there's just a lot more communication and knowledge and people that you can talk to and look at and say, hey man, you know, what'd y'all do here? And they'll share the information. It's not, and if you got the
none of this is rocket science.
No, it's not.
And you can't buy, that's old things. You can dream big, but you can't buy your way into it.
No.
I mean, the people have to come pay those tickets. And if they don't.
And you never know what's going to hit. It could be, you could look at someone and go, that's never going to work, and it works. I mean, it's a crapshoot.
I got to watch a couple rockets take off. I got to watch Pat's take off. I remember talking about you're getting just swallowed up on the highway by him. Just move over, Ingram. I stole your T-shirt idea. Now I'm taking the whole country. But then I also got to be there for that first summer of Taylor Swift,
right?
Which was
huge.
Multiples.
Yes.
I mean, Pat's was big in Texas, and it was big in the country. But to watch the second coming of Elvis was pretty fucking amazing.
Oh yeah.
But I understood what it was because I had already seen it. It was like, oh, and it had helped me stick to my own musical guns too,
right.
Having known that I was this way when I started. Got passed up by a guy that I still don't know how or why. You know, it's like you're never going to.
Right.
And then, here comes Taylor. I had a record out before her on the same label, and all of a sudden she's taking off like pancakes at a breakfast. And I was like, oh, that doesn't really reflect on me.
Right. It's
not my problem. It's an uncontrollable thing.
Right.
I'll just sign my little autographs and go about my business.
Yeah.
So when did you decide to let go of AUE? Or did you?
I sold that to a guy. I don't remember the year. I should, but I don't. But that was when I fell in love with being a promoter. Once I worked with Glenn Smith a little bit and promoting those shows. I'd done Margarita Salsa Festival. You know, it's on its 25th year, whatever. But I fell in love with that, and I met Tim O'Connor at the Backyard. And I was like,
that's right.
I want to come work with you and produce shows at the backyard and book shows at the backyard. And he's like, come on, I need the help. He was in some trouble financially. I sold the booking agency. I was kind of burnt out of it because, I know why. I was burnt out of it because I would work an artist from $500 a gig to whatever, and they would make $200,000 that year in gross touring. But I would work them from making $200,000 a year to $2 million a year, and then Nashville comes swoop them up. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, this is an ass kick. It's like, and I didn't fault them. I understood why they were going to those bigger agencies at the time. Nowadays, I don't think it's a smart move. But anyways, at the time, I think it was a smart move. But then they started getting to $500,000 and seeing me develop them, like a Blue Edmondson, for example. And here comes CAA wanting them at $500,000 in touring. I'm like, fuck, I haven't even made any money yet. I mean, I made $50,000 off the guy in a year, but I've got 2 assistants over here, and I've got this over here, and a rent on a building, and it's like, and you're already swooping them up. Let me at least get to $2 or $3 million.
What made it so that you couldn't take that next step and
probably
take
family, like my kids. I had kids. I think I possibly, not possibly. I know I could. When Pat moved to a major agency, that was another respectful thing he did. We went to 3 major agencies, and all 3 he and I flew out together as me, him, and Jimmy. He took his agent, current agent, to every possible agent that he was going to sign with, to every meeting. And one of the 3 majors was like, we'll hire you on the spot. You just have to move here. And I was like, I'm not leaving. I'm not moving. My kids are in school. I'm not, So that was my decision. But that probably would have helped. I could have done that and started my own, or I could have just done that and been a huge agent or whatever. Right. Because I felt like I was good at what I was doing. So I think I would have been successful at a major agency. But I just decided no. And I think I didn't love it. I did it because I had to for Pat. Right. And then I did love it while I did it. But when it got to the end, I was like, eh. So I went to the backyard and sold that agency. That guy ran it to the ground 12 months later. I called him every week saying, hey, man, can I help you? And he just knew it all and just didn't want any help. And it just nosediving at the ground, unfortunately.
How was your stint at the backyard?
It was awesome.
It was?
Yeah. It was really good. So Tim was in financial trouble, and he brought me on, guaranteed me the salary. We get 3 months into it, he can't pay me. Or he can pay me like half of it or something. He's like, but I got an idea. He always had an idea. And I think he's a pretty genius guy. There's some things I would not do that he would do, but there's a lot of things that he taught me that I'm like, man, I learned from him like I did Glenn Smith, the positive things. But he and I started talking, and he was like, man, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to keep you on. And I was like, well, just let me know. So he's like, I owe this much money in back taxes. I need to get the beer license out of my name because I cannot catch up with this. Why don't you take on the liquor license at the backyard? And that could be part of your income for what you're doing, and I can pay you this much. Okay. So I could do the bar license under Greg Henry and Associates, and the existing bar manager that was there, which I knew nothing about bars, selling beer or anything. So I'm like, he's like, I'll partner with you. I was like, sweet. So he ran it. I put it under my name. He and I financed it. And we did that for 4 or 5 years straight, and it was awesome. Because, it was just positive income every time, and we had to give a percentage.
Were they doing big shows?
Big, yeah. We were doing
this was
Willie Nelson.
After it
Arcade
moved.
Fire, yeah. I would go, I knew Charles Attal and Amy really well, and would go to them and say, hey, come over here and bring some shows, man. I'll give you a great rent on the venue. And them and Tim were kind of at it at the moment, and they're like, no, we don't want to do anything. And I was like, it's me, trust me. And they came over and they did about 3 to 6 shows a year at the backyard, dealt with me only. C3. So that was a sweet deal because they would come over.
Well, Charlie Jones got his start with Tim.
Oh yeah.
Charlie, their blood goes back.
Charlie Walker, I think, were with Pace concerts, and Tim was involved. I don't know that whole history, to be honest, but they all had something at some point.
It was a little before your time.
Yeah. And then they had a falling out. So Charles and Amy were like, we're out. And I talked them into it, and they reluctantly did the first one. It went smooth. They got their money. And after that, they did about 3 to 6 shows a year over there. So that was just kind of free money because they took on all the expenses and the risk. We just opened the bar up, and I was on site to make sure everything they needed was there and everything ran smooth. So I did that for 4 or 5 years with the backyard.
Did they just stop doing shows over there, or what happened?
Just money ran out. I can't say that. I don't know. I don't think Tim went bankrupt, but maybe the company did, or maybe none of that happened, and it just didn't work out.
Just when.
Yeah, I know John Paul DeGioia owned the land, and we were having issues with the road here and there, and in the city, and it just I don't know. My buddy Joe Griffin said he drove over there the other day. And it's just tall, weeds and.
Yeah, I drive by there all the time.
Yeah, I don't know what it looks like, but it was like an awesome venue.
Yeah,
it was. I mean, it wasn't the original, but it was cool. I mean, we worked our butts off to make it look sharp and put on some good shows. But yeah, we would do 3,000 to 5,000 people out there when we did a show.
Wow.
So
I never knew that it had that much success over there after it moved.
Yep.
So that just went under, and you
So I saw
you were
it,
doing something else though too.
I saw it starting to head that direction about probably 12 to 15 months before it did. And that's when Jeff Griffin and we had always talked about opening up a beer joint and just being on the road with Pat and just go to 8 Airs or whatever and be like, man, I want a little beer joint like this. So he and I just started talking, and I was like, man, let's open up a beer joint. Like, I have the license, I have the history, and I understand the beer sales side of it, the liquor side and all of that.
Oh, so you got to take that license with you?
No, but I just learned from, the inventory and the bartenders and like just how to coordinate a bar. Mm-hmm. But no, I didn't get to take it with me. It had to stay on that premise. So, but we started talking about a bar, and Beaner, who had Willie'sJoint.com for 6 years before this, was like, let's do Willie's Joint. Okay. Then we met Greg Pratt, and he was doing barbecue caterings downtown at the bars. And then we're like, let's all do a bar together. So in 2013, we created an LLC and launched that and developed the property that we rent in Buda.
Oh, y'all rent that place?
And that's how we got into the bar. But yeah, unfortunately, I wish we owned it. But that's how we got in the bar business.
How long did it take you to get your license?
Oh, it's only like,
I heard that was
it's about 6 months. It's not bad.
So how's that going on? Like, how many shows do y'all do a year there at the joint?
Willie's, we're pretty much some sort of entertainment. It could be karaoke, it could be live music, but pretty much it's probably 5 days a week, 6 days a week.
And how many times do you have like
shows like with
acts? Yeah.
So like you guys, we probably try to do 3 or 4 a month. Not a lot. I mean, we really don't want to be a concert venue. Mm-hmm. We don't want to be a Nutty Brown.
Why not?
Nervous about pigeonholing myself into a concert venue where people only come to your place when there's a concert. I want people to come to the place 7 days a week, be your local beer joint, hang out. Whereas I've seen a lot of venues where it's like they have great acts, but when those acts aren't there, people just don't even go there.
Right.
There may be 20 people there a day or something, but I'd rather have 100 people come through a day and have a beer and have a burger or whatever. So, and that was the vision that Beaner and I had at the very beginning. It's like, man, we just want to be house music, good jukebox, just honky tonk roadside bar. And then we have become a little bit more of a concert venue just because of COVID.
Right.
So we would try to do like a Wednesday or a Sunday with artists when they were playing Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So they could pick up a little extra cash, and it would help us with beer sales, get them 100% on the door, and just be like, let's do it.
So how many nights a week are you at the bar? Like how long, without having fun?
I let the managers handle it. I mean, I work on both bars from about 10 in the morning till about 4 in the afternoon daily, whether that's from my house or my office at Willie's Joint.
What other bar?
Papa Jack's in Kyle.
Oh, yeah.
So I go in there, have a weekly meeting with the managers, and then I do my office work, accounting, making sure social media is on tap. We got a social media manager, just kind of overseeing it all, and don't have to really be there at night which is good because I mean I have kids and
Yeah.
you can fall into that real quick.
Is Papa Jack's, is that part with Wade?
Yep, Wade Bowen. Yep. So it's Wade Bowen and I, and then Jeff Griffin's a partner, Greg Pratt's a partner.
And Papa Jack's also?
Mm-hmm. So we're both partners in both bars.
Is that Papa Jack's taking off a little bit?
So Willie's is doing well. Papa Jack's, the first 2 years we opened it was horrible. I always describe bars being like bands, like it's a crapshoot. Like you can put a band on the road and you don't know if it's going to take off or not. And you can open a bar and you don't know if it's going to take off or not. So pre-COVID, about 2 months right before COVID hit, it was actually doubling what we were turning around. And then boom, we got hit and shut down. And since we've opened back up, it has just been on fire. It's been awesome.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. And it's
What's
I say on fire, we're not going to get rich off these damn things. There's so many expenses and
Right.
all of that, but it's like it'll create a little revenue stream, you know, for partners. But it is crazy why it just all of a sudden, boom, just takes off. I don't know why.
Well, I know that after COVID, fans are different,
Yeah.
bars are different,
Yeah.
turnouts are different, encores are different. Like, you know, I haven't had to do a fake encore since we got back. Still got 10 minutes left on your contract, Ingram.
Kick him out the door. That's like that story. Has Robert Gallagher ever told you a story about
Jerry Lee Lewis?
Was it Jerry Lee or Waylon?
Where he's, I think I was there with you when he was talking about having 15 minutes left.
Yes.
Killer.
Yes.
Kept going,
Yeah.
Killer.
Killer.
Because, well, Killer ain't going to get 15 grand if he don't play 15 more minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the one with Waylon was kind of the same thing, but Waylon was on stage. Of course, I wasn't there, this is hearsay, but Waylon was on stage, and Robert said he was notorious for doing the same thing as Killer, like coming off stage, you know, like 20, 30 minutes early. And so he had done it twice, and Robert was like, oh, he's not going to do it this time. So, you know, backstage where you come off, it was a 60-minute set, and he was like 40 minutes into it. And he's like, all right, good night, Billy Bobs, we love you, or something. And Robert goes up there and locks the backstage door. And Waylon goes, and he hits the door, and his cowboy hat goes up like this and falls on the ground. So he can't get out, and he's trying. And he picks his cowboy hat up, walks back out there, puts it on. He's like, well, these motherfuckers locked me on stage, so I guess I'll keep playing for y'all. I mean, that Gallagher can tell some stories, man.
Well, that time starts moving slow some nights, too.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
I've been on the other side of that where it's like, God damn, are we done yet?
Can you unlock this door? That's funny. But yeah.
Best show Killer ever gave.
Oh, Killer.
Killer's got 15 minutes left to put on another great show.
15 grand. God damn, Killer. That's funny. We said that every night in Key West, me and you.
That's right.
Damn, Killer.
Damn, Killer. Hey, Killer. Did you go to Key West this year?
I did. Yeah, worked it again. 4th year.
Mile Zero?
Yeah.
That's a great festival, man.
I think it's their 4th year, but yeah, they've Kyle Carter puts on a hell of a festival. He has a great team.
Do you just go up there and work, or are you a partner in that?
No, just work. Just get hired to help produce it. And I mean, they've got it taken care of. I just come up there and they give me a stage, or sometimes 3 or 4 of them to kind of go and make sure that, you know, you guys are okay, the artist is okay, the production's okay, and the venue manager's okay. And it's relatively simple. I mean, there's a couple times it's been hectic, like when an outdoor stage and a storm rolls in or something. You
Right.
got to get it going. But no, he has a hell of a team, and it's a hell of a ticketing provider.
So do you.
Yep, Billy's Joint. Yep. But yeah, it's all those festivals are great, man. I mean, Steamboat, Mile Zero Festival, Casey's Boots on the Beach, and Dos Borrachos at Kevin and those guys. I mean, there's a million others, but you know, everybody's like, well, you go to all these, which one's your favorite? I'm like, man, just pick one. They're all great. It's all great talent. It's all a good time. And
Yeah, people always ask me, like, what's your favorite venue? I'm like, the full ones.
yeah,
Ones where people show
the
up.
ones with energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but it takes people who know what they're doing and know, well, guys like you know, that have made all the mistakes for.
Mm-hmm. And still make them.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'll tell you what, the first year I went, I met Kyle Carter through Medicine Stone. Now I was hired to produce that with Corey McDaniel and Turnpike and Bowen, who own it. And I met Kyle, and he was like, man, we want to get you and Robert Gallagher up there and help us make sure everything's good. Y'all know all these guys. And they didn't have a real tight relationship with a lot of the Texas guys because they were from Oklahoma. I was like, man, I'd love to be involved. And, man, that first year I rolled in, and I was like, all right, it's going to be the first year festival thing where there's going to be some hiccups. I don't know that I can name hardly one or two. It's like it was just so smooth. I mean, it was like they were on their second or third year of this thing. And every artist that played it was like this, because they were all a little nervous too on the first year.
I remember.
Yeah. So
I remember walking in there going, this is badass.
Mm-hmm.
Without all the heavy clothes.
Yeah. Yes. Thank God.
Without having to park your bus in the snow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's a great festival.
I thought you were talking about the bikinis on the girls.
Oh, I wasn't looking. I didn't notice.
I didn't either. I don't even know they exist.
So, man, 30 years into this, right?
Pretty much.
Almost.
Yep.
Do you do anything outside of music?
I ventured out. I have the 2 bars, 2 kids, which is another job. And then I do I'm shooting for 8 to 10 shows a year. And then started investing in real estate and taking the John Dixon School of Real Estate. And Kevin Fowler. Those are 2 influences on me on real estate. I definitely follow them. I mean, I had some things invested in stock market or whatever, and Dixon was like, you do that, I'm going to do this with land, and let's compare notes in 10 years. And he told me that, and I was like, okay. And I literally stopped that day, invested in Willie's, you know, put money into Papa Jack's, whatever, but put in real estate and hope for the best.
Right. Like out there in Wimberley and all those places where I
haven't done anything there. I'm pretty much Buda. So
you're
several properties in Buda, one in Kyle, and just trying to build it up where the ultimate goal would be to have the 2 bars running with great management, have 8 shows a year. My daughter graduates in 2 years. Lisa and I grab a amazing RV and go see coast to coast things that I would love to see I haven't seen in my life, like you guys have. You know, I was jealous of Beaner getting to see everything I see with Pat, but I had to stay in the office.
Right.
But go see those things and have a show, leave the RV where it's at, fly back in, do the show, go back out there and travel around.
You up for this? Well, hey, man, thanks for coming.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Love talking to you, man.
Appreciate it.
I love it that we've been friends this long.
Long time.
And that I was like we started out talking. I mean, I've always been not amazed, proud and grateful to have you as a friend, and also to watch you, the way you do things, the way you're not afraid just to ask questions and stick your head out and go, how's this work? And then go make it work.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've ever been around you or heard of anything that you've had your hands on that has gone belly up. Because you have a work ethic that's admirable.
Thank you, man. It means a lot to me, being someone who I, look up to and honored to be here.
Well, you've been a good friend of mine since you were 17. I was 22 or whatever. However, 1993.
Yep.
93.
It was 93 because I graduated in 94 and I started listening to this music about 92, 93. So yeah, and Michael Staten was dating Delane, and I happened to go to that private party, and it was over from there, man. Beaner and I probably went to 6 or 8 of your shows. I mean, back to back. I mean, where Beaner was falling on the stage, and I think he chipped your tooth as well with the microphone.
I gotta find that picture. Oh, mine? Yeah, man. It's happened like literally 5 or 6 times. Like somebody happened at 8 Airs, happened to those private parties. Some drunk, bam.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take much. One time I did it to myself because I was getting all ramped up on something. And the mic stand was Needed some sugar packets under it. I stepped on it, boom, like a rake.
We were at Adair's and Beaner was spinning this girl around on the very front. You know, it's just the ground, so he's just on the ground.
Yeah.
And there's monitors. And Beaner goes and spins this chick around, and his back's to Jack, and Jack's singing. And Beaner trips over the monitor and falls on stage, and the microphone goes everywhere. And we didn't even hardly know him at the time. We were just fans. Like, we weren't in the music business or friends. We were just fans. You knew us, but oh man, it was so funny.
That is great.
Yeah. And Lois, the picture you took with her the other day, holy moly. She looked exactly the same.
I know, man.
Aged a year.
No.
Isn't that crazy?
I honestly didn't know if she was still alive. Because, I mean, that was a long time ago.
She
looks great.
looks fantastic.
Yeah, no. We just got the PPP. Oh, wow.
That was that day,
Wow.
1993.
Dude. That was at the backyard of the Lane Crow's house.
Shit. Fucking baby.
Baby.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?